Revenge with Karen.
Did you hear Parker's got a solo? Jason beamed across the bullpen, his voice bouncing off the glass walls like a badly tuned xylophone. Second chair clarinet. Big moment. Big. It was 8:03 a.m., the Monday after Q4 wrapped, and Alina already felt the week clawing at her temples. She'd barely peeled off her coat before Jason's voice had snaked its way through the office like steam from a microwave burrito. Winter recitals Friday. There or be, what's the word? He snapped his fingers, fake thinking. Emotionally disengaged, a few people chuckled. The new girl, Bethany, laughed too loud and too long. Alina didn't. She smiled politely, the way you do when your dentist makes a joke while holding a drill. She opened her laptop. Her inbox had 41 unread messages and a flagged reminder for the Hayward renewal, a $20 million contract with their biggest client. CFO had been circling like a hawk for weeks. Alina had built the relationship slowly over 4 years. Late-night issue escalations, quarterly roadmap reviews, 2 last-minute save-the-account pivots, and 1 Christmas Eve call when the client's API crashed. Jason had never once joined those calls, but he loved to reference Alina's Hayward wizardry whenever execs were nearby. She noticed the new calendar invite drop-in. Subject: mandatory morale boost event. Parker's winter recital musical notes time. Friday 6:30 p.m. location. Lincoln Middle School auditorium notes. Team attendance expected. Let's support our own. Her stomach dropped like a bad elevator. Not because she disliked kids. Alina had a niche she adored. Because this reeked of Jason's favorite tactic, mixing personal optics with professional obligation. She clicked the invite. Yes, attending. Declining wasn't worth the drama. That same hour, she finalized her prep for the renewal pitch. Mr. Hayward himself had confirmed he'd be free Friday evening for a quick sync. His assistant had warned, that window is tight. He'll be airborne the rest of the week. Alina had booked the call. It was scheduled for 7:00 p.m. sharp, 15 minutes, maybe 20. Just enough to walk him through the revised rollout plan, highlight the new security layer, and confirm final signature. She flagged it in her calendar. Call Hayward renewal confirmed, 7:00 p.m. Friday for the next few days. Jason hovered like cheap cologne. He wandered by Alina's desk, dropping comments like loose change. You ready for the big show? Parker's been practicing till his fingers blister. If you're not one of those slip-out during intermission types, Alina. She didn't rise to it. She just kept polishing the pitch deck, tightening her language, aligning it to Hayward's no BS style. One afternoon, she caught Jason bragging in the break room. I told legal, morale's just as important as metrics. We gotta reward the right behaviors, you know? The word right stuck with her like gum on her shoe. Meanwhile, the numbers told a different story. Lena's team had outperformed 3 of the 4 regional pods. Retention was up. Churn was down. Her bonus projection was healthy, very healthy. But she knew better than to trust assumptions in this place, especially with Jason. He was the kind of director who slapped his name on every team win, but ghosted when things got hard. A loud cheerleader with an allergy to accountability. He loved softball metaphors, Friday donuts, blurring the line between professional and personal until it bent like a glow stick. By Thursday, Alina had prepped 2 fallback options for the Hayward call, one in case the auditorium Wi-Fi failed, another in case noise became an issue. She planned to duck out to the lobby during intermission. She even rehearsed a casual line. Sorry, quick call with a West Coast client. Be right back. No need to mention the size of the contract. No need to remind Jason that the entire Q1 forecast basically depended on this renewal. Because Jason didn't care about the work. He cared about the performance of caring. Friday came like an ambush in slow motion. Alina left the office early, changed into a sweater that didn't scream corporate, and arrived at Lincoln Middle by 6:25 p.m. The parking lot was a frostbitten mess. Parents grumbled about the ice. He spotted her coworkers clustered near the auditorium doors. Bethany was taking selfies. Marcus looked like he'd rather be on fire. Jason was working the room like a discount campaign manager. Alina, he called, clapping her on the back like she'd just scored a touchdown. Glad you made it. Parker's gonna be thrilled. She smiled, nodded, watched him turn away without waiting for a response. The recital began with a painfully slow rendition of Ode to Joy. Lena clapped politely, her watch buzzed. 6:58. She rose quietly and slipped toward the exit. Jason saw her, raised an eyebrow. She mouthed just a call and pointed at her phone. He rolled his eyes and turned back to the stage. Outside, the cold bit hard. She pulled her coat tight, walked a few paces from the front doors, and tapped her headset. "Mr. Hayward, this is Alina." His voice crackled through. "Right on time. Appreciate it." She launched into the deck. "Oh, fluff. Just numbers, risk mitigation, the implementation roadmap." Hayward listened without interruption. Occasionally grunted his approval. 17 minutes later, he said, "This looks solid. I'll sign tonight." "Thank you," she said. A long pause, then odd background noise earlier. "School band?" She hesitated. "Yes, sir. Morale event. Company thing." Hayward chuckled dryly. Nothing like clarinet solos to fuel capitalism. The call ended. Alina exhaled. She'd done it. She went back inside, slid into her seat, and caught the tail end of Parker's finale. Jason leaned over. "Missed the solo," he whispered. "Shame." She said nothing, just clapped as the stage lights dimmed. The next morning, the building's HVAC wheezed like it had the flu. Alina sipped burnt coffee from the kitchen Keurig, her fingers stiff from the cold seeping through the office windows. It was one of those gray Ohio mornings where the sky looked like a dirty sponge and even the fluorescent lights felt judgmental. Jason strolled in late, his parka slung over his arm like it had personally offended him. "Good crowd last night," he said to no one in particular, loud enough to claim the room. Parker crushed that solo. Tonal clarity, breath control, he's got the lungs of a champion. Alina didn't look up from her screen. It was already 3 emails into a thread with legal about the Hayward renewal, and the final contract, signed and timestamped at 8:17 p.m. the night before, was attached and ready for routing. She clicked forward, CC'd the necessary parties, and added one line, "Contract signed." Hayward approved all rollout phases through Q3. "Thanks, send." She leaned back, let it breathe. Jason's voice cut through again. Shame some folks missed it. Parker really opened up in that second verse. Alina kept her eyes on her inbox. Nothing worth replying to. A few minutes later, Jason padded over to her desk holding a paper plate with a stale donut like it was some kind of diplomatic gift. "You ducked out during the best part," he said, setting the plate on her desk like she was starving for a powdery peace offering. "Hope that call was worth it." She blinked at him once. It was. Jason didn't respond immediately. He scratched the back of his neck like he was trying to find a personality back there. "It's important we all show up, you know, for the team, especially at morale events." Alina raised an eyebrow. "I was there. I left during intermission, took a scheduled call with a priority client, then I came back." He smiled like a gas station clerk catching you pocketing gum. "Right. Just saying, optics matter." Then he walked off, his donut piece offering untouched. That afternoon, the office buzzed about the contract. Not from Jason, of course, from legal. Someone forwarded Alina's email thread, and word got around fast that she'd closed the renewal. No drama, no delays. $20 million locked in through Q3 with optional expansion. She caught the CFO peeking into her office as he passed, then doubling back. "Hey, Alina, Hayward's in?" he asked, almost casually. "Signed last night," she said, "final docs with legal." The CFO actually smiled, and not the forced kind people wear in all-hands meetings. "Great, really great." He started to walk away, then turned. "You're not on the internal announcement thread, are you?" She shook her head. "Let me fix that." Alina said nothing, but she did allow herself a quiet moment, just long enough to let that invisible weight slide an inch off her back. Not off, just repositioned. By midweek, Edward's team had already reached out again. His assistant asked if Alina would be available for a walkthrough next Thursday. Jason wasn't copied. She replied, confirmed. "I'll prep rollout scenarios in advance." No one brought up Parker's solo again until Friday, when the official bonus adjustment letters came through. Alina was reading a weekly status deck when she noticed the subject line. Subject: Annual Discretionary Bonus 2025. She opened the email, scanned it, and froze. Her expected figure, based on revenue contributions, client retention, and project closeout metrics, was short by 5 digits. Exactly 5 digits. She blinked. Read it again. Jason's name was at the bottom of the email. The bonus pool had been equitably redistributed based on holistic contributions to company culture, team morale, and visibility. Visibility. She didn't slam her desk. She didn't march into his office. He didn't even reply. She just sat there, stone still, watching her reflection ripple slightly in her dark monitor screen. Then she opened her sent folder, found the signed contract, and forwarded it again, this time to legal, the CFO, and compliance. No message, just the file. Jason passed her desk an hour later, sipping from a branded tumbler like he'd won a raffle. "Any plans this weekend?" he asked, casual as a paper cut. She looked up. Her voice was flat as concrete. "Rest, read, recalculate." Jason laughed like that meant nothing at all. But Alina wasn't recalculating her weekend. She was recalculating everything. They called her into HR at 9:06 a.m. sharp. No warning. "Just a hey, Alina, do you have a sec?" From Danielle in HR, chirped through Slack like it was about a potluck sign-up, not a financial gut punch. She walked in and immediately clocked the setup. Danielle with her clipboard smile, and Jason in his usual performative lean, casually perched on the edge of a chair like this, was just a friendly check-in over bagels. "Thanks for making the time," Danielle said, gesturing to the seat across from her. Alina sat, calm on the outside, blood pressure probably painting murals on the inside of her skull. Jason smiled. "Wanted to loop you in on some end-of-year comp decisions. I've had a strong year, really solid client outcomes. Hayward, obviously, big win." Alina nodded once. "Yes, that's signed and routing through legal now." Jason glanced at Danielle, then back to Alina. "Right. So about that, this year, we're taking a more holistic approach to performance metrics. It's not just about deals closed, but overall cultural alignment, morale engagement, visibility in team-building contexts." Alina tilted her head slightly. "Visibility." Danielle jumped in like a substitute teacher breaking up a snowball fight. "It's a company-wide shift. A lot of folks are seeing adjustments, some up, some down, based on how fully they leaned into our team values this year." Jason scratched his chin like he just invented the phrase team values. "We noticed some disengagement, especially around morale initiatives." Alina stared, said nothing. Jason continued, like he was reading from a therapist's fridge magnet. "Sometimes showing up means more than logging hours. It's about presence, being part of the culture." Danielle smiled softly, like she was administering a flu shot to a toddler. "To that end, your bonus was adjusted. It's still significant, just refined to reflect overall contribution." Alina's voice was even. "Is this a performance-based adjustment?" Danielle blinked, not in the traditional sense. Jason leaned forward, hands steepled like a knockoff executive Buddha. "It's not about performance, it's about perception, perception." The word landed like a cracked molar. Alina didn't frown, she didn't flinch. She folded her hands over her knee and said, "Understood." Danielle looked relieved. Jason looked bored. "I'll send over the new bonus letter for your signature," Danielle said. "No need to reply. Just DocuSign and we'll route it to payroll." Alina rose. "Thanks." She left the room without touching the doorframe, without looking back. The time she got to her desk, her monitor was still in sleep mode, but she was wide awake in a way that made her fingers twitch. She opened her inbox, searched Hayward renewal, found the signed PDF, and clicked forward. She typed nothing in the body. Just added 3 recipients, legal, CFO, Jason. Hit send. Then she stood up, walked to the kitchen, poured a fresh cup of stale coffee, and watched the cream swirl like a storm system on satellite radar. Back at her desk, the bonus letter sat unread in her inbox. She left it there. At 11:14, a reply pinged from legal. "Thanks, Alina. Confirming receipt of final contract. Big win for Q1. We'll loop you in for rollout scheduling next week." CC'd the entire ops team, not CC'd Jason. She didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She just minimized the window and opened her forecast spreadsheet. If she'd learned anything over the years, was this: fight the battle you choose, not the one someone else invites you to. Jason didn't come by that afternoon. Danielle sent a follow-up just checking in, Slack at 3:43, which Alina ignored. That evening, as she packed her laptop, she noticed Bethany and Marcus whispering in the hallway. They quieted when she passed. People always notice shifts in power before they admit they do. Outside, the wind was brutal, whipping wrappers and cigarette butts across the parking lot like failed promises. Alina zipped her coat, tucked her scarf under her chin, and walked into it like she had somewhere better to be. Because she did. Her dignity hadn't been docked. Her spine hadn't been prorated. And if perception was the new currency, then silence was her investment strategy. Jason never replied to the contract email. Not a great work, not a thanks, not even his usual passive-aggressive ellipsis. The kind of radio silence that felt deliberate, like a cold shoulder typed in Arial 12-point font. Alina didn't take it personally. because she didn't take anything personally anymore. She took it structurally, like a structural crack in the foundation, spreading beneath cheap drywall smiles. By Monday, the contract was logged in Salesforce. Legal had submitted the routing confirmations. Ops started initial prep for onboarding. Alina sat quietly through the weekly stand-up while Jason waxed poetic about Q1 momentum and strong cultural synergy without so much as mentioning the name Hayward. But then came the email. Subject, great catching up follow-up on contract planning sender, Jason. Sent Sunday at 9:48 p.m. as if to telegraph how dedicated he was. Tone, giddy, overfamiliar, filled with platitudes like excited to take this next chapter together and looping back in as your point of contact. The reply came Monday morning at 6:07 a.m. From Jonathan Hayward to Jason CC, none. Let's discuss future contract matters with the same rep I spoke to last. 8 words, no greeting, no emoji, no signature block. Just corporate judgment delivered with surgical precision. Jason didn't forward the email. Marcus in sales had already seen it. He'd overheard someone from Hayward's team chuckling about it during a kickoff call. By lunchtime, the message had reached Alina through office osmosis. No one said it aloud, but everyone was aware. Like a sudden shift in barometric pressure before a storm. Jason called a quick alignment sync that afternoon. Just him and Alina, in a side conference room that smelled faintly of vanilla protein shake and fear. So, he said, pretending to scroll his phone. Got a little note from Hayward. He's direct. Alina sat still, one ankle crossed over the other, not offering a word. Jason glanced up. These guys always play power games. It's a dance. He'll come around. I'm gonna loop them back to me next week, just so we don't confuse the messaging. She nodded just once. Measured, understood. Jason smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. We good? We're aligned, she said and stood, left without grabbing a mint from the jar he kept by the door like some kind of behavioral bait. Back at her desk, she opened a new folder on her personal drive. Named it Band Solo Fallout. Inside, she started saving PDFs. The signed contract, the legal routing chain. Hayward's reply to Jason. A screenshot of the original bonus statement, timestamped. A screen recording of her Salesforce update from the day after the recital. It wasn't vindictive, it was insurance. Because Jason wasn't just insecure, he was dangerous in the way mid-tier men with slipping influence become when they realize their charm no longer works on the room. The kind of guy who'd rather burn the house than admit someone else built the foundation. By Thursday, the next clue arrived. Alina received a direct invite from Hayward's legal liaison, not Jason, to join a planning session the following week. No CCs. Oh, just keeping leadership in the loop. Just her. She clicked accept, then printed it to PDF and dropped it into the folder. Jason, meanwhile, was shifting tactics. Suddenly more buddy-buddy, complimenting her jacket, asking how her weekend went, even offering a seat at the weekly culture ambassador's huddle. She declined. Client workload's heavy. He fake laughed. Don't let the numbers bury you. She didn't reply. Instead, she bought a fresh notebook on her lunch break. Hardcover, no frills. Page 1, January 13 bonus adjustment rationale, perceived disengagement. Below it, she listed bullet points. Parker's recital equals mandatory morale event. Took contract call during intermission. Hayward feedback, direct exclusion of Jason. Bonus reduction not tied to performance metrics. Legal confirmed Alina primary contact. She kept the notebook in her bag, took it home each night. Updated it after every meeting, every Slack message that made her gut twitch, every smile that didn't feel like one. Jason didn't know it yet, but he'd started an avalanche with a single passive-aggressive email. And Alina, she was just watching the snow pile up. By the following Tuesday, Jason was spiraling with the grace of a malfunctioning Roomba. Alina watched it happen from her usual perch. Back row of the bullpen, headphones in, tabs open, eyes flicking between client dashboards and internal task trackers like a surgeon scanning vitals. But even with noise-canceling earbuds, you could hear Jason unraveling. His volume had a special way of cutting through drywall and dignity. Hey, has anyone seen the latest from Hayward's team? He asked loud enough for half the floor to pretend not to hear. I didn't get looped in on the last sync notes. Probably a filter issue. No one responded. Not because they didn't know, because they did. The Hayward account had stopped including him. No more Jason plus Alina plus legal combos. No more courtesy CCs. Just direct, surgical comms between Hayward's legal counsel and Alina. One thread, one name. Alina had noticed the shift a week prior. A few small signs at first, messages addressed only to her, internal questions routed exclusively to her inbox, subtle as previously discussed with Alina, dropped into a contract clause. Then legal reached out. Subject, role clarity Hayward account from Lee Baxter, corporate counsel to Alina M. Hi Alina, per the client's request and to streamline documentation, can you please formalize your role as primary account lead for Hayward? We'll need updated designation forms for audit compliance. Let me know if you need help with the paperwork. Lena replied within the hour. Attach the form. No ceremony. Jason didn't mention it directly. He tried to claw back relevance through small acts of theater, dropping Hayward's name in meetings, accidentally referencing the wrong rollout date to bait a correction. Once, he even tagged Alina in a Slack channel to confirm she had visibility on a non-existent delay. She didn't take the bait, just replied with the actual timeline and attached the signed phase document. No commentary, no color. On Thursday, he cracked. She was pouring herself stale breakroom coffee, the kind that tastes like melted regret, when Jason appeared, blocking the doorway like an angry Roomba with middle management energy. You think you're untouchable now? He asked, no greeting, no pretense. She didn't blink, just raised the mug to her lips. I'm serious, he continued. Just because Hayward's team has a crush on your project management doesn't mean you run the place. She sipped, slow and calm, like she was tasting something complex. Jason lowered his voice, trying for menace but landing somewhere between petty and pathetic. You've been getting a lot of spotlight lately. Don't let it go to your head. She lowered the mug. You done? His jaw clenched. She stepped past him, brushing his shoulder lightly with her coat. Not enough to be aggressive, just enough to remind him that she had to physically walk around his ego to get back to work. Behind her, she heard the hiss of a paper towel dispenser, a weird little punctuation mark on his failed attempt at dominance. Later that day, she added a new page to her notebook. January 21 breakroom interaction. Direct confrontation. Implied threat visibility. Underneath, she wrote, confirmed primary on Hayward. Legal documentation filed. Jason no longer CC'd on client threads. Breakroom comment, you think you're untouchable now. No witnesses, no reaction. Logged. That evening, she emailed legal again, this time with a simple clarification. She wanted written confirmation that her role as account lead had been formally registered for audit purposes. Lee replied, absolutely. Already submitted. You're the listed point of contact through Q3. We've informed the client accordingly. Thanks for keeping everything so clean, makes our job easier. Alina smiled at that. Not a big smile, just a closed lip, quiet thing. The kind you make when a storm finally breaks over someone else's house. By Friday, Jason had stopped hovering. He didn't swing by her desk. He didn't crack jokes at her expense. He didn't even fake the how's the weekend shaping up. Small talk he usually weaponized as faux camaraderie, because he'd finally figured it out. He wasn't just being handed the spotlight. She was the spotlight now, and he was burning under it. The call came at 7:46 a.m., 2 hours before anyone in the C-suite had finished their protein smoothies or clipped on their collaborative leadership personas. It was Jonathan Hayward, direct line. No assistant. The CFO, Mark Yeats, was halfway through reheating a breakfast burrito in the break room when his phone lit up, answered with the kind of corporate perkiness that only exists for important clients and potential lawsuits. Mark Yeats. Jonathan Hayward, the voice replied, flat as drywall and twice as dry. One question before we proceed with renewal scope. Mark straightened, the microwave beeped. Hayward didn't wait. Is Alina still with you? Mark blinked. Alina McAdams, the rep I spoke to during the contract review. Is she still employed there? Mark swallowed. Yes, of course. Good, Hayward said. If she's still available, we'll move forward. If not, we won't. Click, no goodbye, no hedging. Just corporate thunder, dropped like a bowling ball onto a conference table. By 9:00 a.m., the war horns had sounded. Jason was pulled into a meeting he hadn't scheduled. Mark was already seated, face pinched in the way people look when they realize they're late to their own funeral. Legal was there, so was HR. It was Alina, invited at the last minute with a brisk calendar ping titled, Strategic Continuity Check-In. Jason walked in last, eyes darting, confusion already doing laps behind his forehead. What's going on? He asked, aiming the question nowhere in particular. Mark didn't look up. You weren't aware Hayward reached out directly this morning. Jason frowned. No. Was it about onboarding? I have a couple drafts, he asked if Alina still worked here. Mark interrupted. That's all he asked. Jason's face went slack, like a man halfway through realizing the house he burned down was his own. There was a pause, a heavy, collective inhale, and then Lee from legal cleared her throat. Given the contract's weight in Q1 revenue and the client's explicit personnel preference, she said carefully, we need to formalize internal structures. Effective immediately. Danielle from HR tapped her tablet, expression somewhere between forced neutrality and slow panic. We'll also be reviewing Alina's bonus record. There was an adjustment made recently that Jason cut in. That was based on culture metrics. Visibility, team alignment. Danielle didn't look at him. That's under review. Jason looked at Alina, who hadn't spoken. Wait, this is about the recital? His voice went up half an octave. We're retrofitting compensation because she stepped out during a clarinet solo. He raised an eyebrow. You penalized a key account lead during an active contract renewal? It was a morale event. Mark finally looked up. It was a $20 million account. Silence. Alina didn't gloat. She didn't blink. She folded her hands in her lap and waited. Mark turned to her. We'd like to explore expanding your scope on the Hayward project. Broader role, direct interface. Possibly a more strategic title. She looked at him, calm and clinical, willing to document everything. Mark blinked. Sorry, I'm not asking for anything, she clarified, but I'll continue to document everything. Conversations, compensation history, staffing allocations, internal reassignments, all of it. Danielle looked like she wanted to melt into her ergonomic chair. Jason shifted in his seat, opening his mouth, then closing it again. Lee broke the silence. That's probably wise. Mark exhaled. Fine. Let's proceed accordingly. The meeting ended 15 minutes later. No one shook hands. Jason left without looking at anyone. Back at her desk, Alina opened her notebook. January 27, strategic continuity check-in. Hayward called CFO directly. Asked, is Alina still with you? Said renewal contingent on her involvement. Bonus under review. Offered expanded role. Response, I'm willing to document everything. Then she clicked open a fresh email to Lee. Hi Lee. Today's discussion, please confirm that I'm now the registered account lead on Hayward and that the previous bonus deduction is under active HR review. Let me know what else you need from me for compliance. She read it once, then twice, then hit send. Jason's office light stayed off for the rest of the day. Jason titled the calendar Invite Igniting Culture, Q1 Team Initiatives. He even added a flame emoji, sent to the entire account division, plus a few borrowed execs from marketing and sales ops, likely a last-ditch attempt to remind the company he still existed in the shape of relevance. The invite popped into inboxes at 4:32 p.m. on a Wednesday, right after the Hayward expansion memo was quietly circulated with Alina listed, by name, as lead strategy contact. Alina clicked tentative, not out of indecision, but as a small act of accuracy, because that's what Jason had become now, a tentative part of everything. A variable, not a constant, a maybe. By the time the presentation rolled around, half the invitees had declined outright. Client calls, conflicts, dental. The rest shuffled in with the slow, doomed energy of coworkers attending a memorial service for a man who wasn't technically dead, but should probably stop haunting the halls. Jason stood at the front of the conference room with a wireless clicker and a PowerPoint deck, themed in soft gradients and forced enthusiasm. The first slide read, Rekindling the Flame. Together toward Q2 underneath was a blurry clip art torch that looked like it had been pulled from the deep recesses of Microsoft Office 2007. Alina took a seat in the back, notebook open, pen poised, not to take notes, but to continue the catalog. Jason clicked through slides about team energy and morale velocity, like a man trying to reverse time by speaking faster. And with renewed focus on inclusion, he said, voice tight, we're working to recenter key voices in our client-facing ecosystem. That sentence alone deserved jail time. A few people nodded politely, clearly there for the snack spread, which included Costco hummus, carrot sticks, and what appeared to be gas station cookies with Innovate printed in frosting. Jason moved to the next slide. Let the record show, he said, puffing up like a motivational turkey. We're building momentum, not just with accounts, but with culture. Alina raised an eyebrow. Because the actual record, emails, client notes, legal filings, audit logs, showed something very different. The meeting wrapped after 37 soul-murdering minutes. No questions. A weak round of applause that felt more like a mercy clap than endorsement. People shuffled out. Jason stayed behind, collecting untouched copies of his handouts like abandoned confetti. Alina returned to her desk and found a new calendar invite waiting. Q1 Executive Strategy Sync attendees. CFO, Legal Marketing VP, Alina M. No Jason. No subject line fireworks. Just inclusion, quiet and absolute. She clicked accept and added one file to the prep folder, the Q1 Strategic Growth Memo. She'd already annotated it. Name was in it twice. No introduction needed anymore. At the strategy sync, she sat between Lee from Legal and the VP of Revenue, listening as they discussed expansion timelines and compliance thresholds. No one paused to explain acronyms. No one asked why she was there, because she was supposed to be. During a lull, the VP of Revenue leaned toward her, voice casual but curious. So, you didn't escalate any of this. Lena didn't look away from the spreadsheet she was reviewing. She just smiled slightly. Didn't have to. He chuckled under his breath. Not mocking, just appreciative of the clean kill. After the meeting, she returned to her desk and updated the notebook. February 3 Executive Strategy Sync, included without request. No escalations made. VP asked if I raised concerns. Response, didn't have to. Jason not present at session. Nighting culture event, poorly attended. No action items. Outside, snow began to fall. Quiet, unapologetic. Jason's door was closed for most of the day. When he emerged near 5, his face was blank. He passed Alina without a word. She didn't turn. There was nothing left to return to. Only what moved forward. It started as a Tuesday like any other. Stale coffee, inbox chaos, the faint sound of the printer jamming like it was choking on its own shame. Lena was reviewing rollout checkpoints for Hayward's Q2 expansion when she noticed the unusual flurry outside Jason's office. His door, usually propped open so everyone could witness his performance of busyness, was firmly shut. Then came the voices, muffled at first, then sharpened by tension. Yes, Mr. Hayward, I understand, of course, absolutely. Jason's tone was thin, reedy. The fake bravado had been wrung out of it like a damp towel. Few heads in the bullpen swiveled. The office was suddenly hushed, as though everyone had synchronized their breathing. Then Jason's voice cracked. Well, with respect, I am the account director. All client matters go through me. Silence, followed by the unmistakable sound of a speakerphone click. Hayward's voice filled the room, steady, crisp, and lethal. About that renewal, Jason, I'd rather deal with the professional you just find. The words hung in the air like a courtroom verdict. Through the glass, Alina could see Jason's face drain of color. He looked down at his hands as though they might rewrite reality for him. The bullpen was so quiet you could hear the HVAC hum. A pen dropped 2 rows over, nobody bent to pick it up. Hayward continued, every syllable precise. This isn't complicated. I want Alina leading point. If she's not available, then we aren't available either. Do you understand me? Jason glanced up then, through the glass, straight at Alina, his eyes wide, desperate, like he wanted her to somehow bail him out of the fire he'd set. Alina didn't move. The CFO stepped into Jason's office mid-call. He didn't bother knocking. Mark Yeats stood with his arms crossed, listening for a beat before speaking directly toward the speakerphone. Mr. Hayward, this is Mark Yeats, CFO. We hear you loud and clear. Hayward's reply was short. Good. I'll expect Alina on Thursday's call. No one else. The line went dead. The silence afterward was heavier than the call itself. Jason looked like he'd been hollowed out, his hands still pressed flat on the desk. Mark's eyes moved from Jason to Alina, who was still standing outside the office. Their gazes met. His jaw flexed once before he said the simplest sentence of the quarter. We'll take it from here. And that was it. No scolding, no raised voices. Just an obituary for Jason's authority written in real time. The bullpen exhaled collectively, like everyone had been holding their lungs hostage until the moment broke. A few heads tilted toward Alina, not in sympathy, not in gossip, but in recognition. She walked back to her desk, calm, composed, and opened her notebook. February 10, Hayward call on speaker in Jason's office. Hayward, I'd rather deal with the professional you just find. CFO present. Confirmed Alina lead. Jason silent. Authority collapsed. Newell tied explicitly to Alina's involvement. She set her pen down, sipped her coffee, and returned to her rollout checklist. Behind her, Jason's office door stayed closed. This time, it wasn't a performance. It was retreat. The boardroom was already warm with the static of nervous energy when Alina walked in. The long table gleamed under fluorescent lights, covered in too many printed agendas that no one would actually read. A few VPs sat stiff-backed, eyes flicking between laptops and their reflections in the glass. Jason was at the far end, tied too tight, face pale and stretched like old paint. The video screen blinked to life, and there he was, Jonathan Hayward. No small talk, no pleasantries, just the kind of gaze that made grown men fidget with pens they didn't need. His voice cut straight through the air. "Is Alina present?" Every head in the room turned at once. Alina lifted her hand slightly, calm, precise. "I'm here." Hayward's tone sharpened. "Good. She's the reason this contract is still active. If she leaves, so do we." It landed like a gavel strike. No one moved. The words wrapped around the room, suffocating any excuse, any spin, any pretense of team culture Jason had tried to preach. Jason shifted forward, his mouth opening. "Mr. Hayward," with respect, but before he could finish, another voice overrode him. The CEO, who had been silent until now, leaned forward, his tone flat and final. "You've done enough." Jason froze. The air drained out of him. He leaned back slowly, as if the chair itself was swallowing him whole. The CFO cleared his throat, turning to Alina. "Per board approval, your revised compensation will be reflected retroactively. 25,000. Additionally, effective immediately, you're being promoted to Vice President of Strategic Accounts." Jason flinched at the word Vice President, as though it had been aimed directly at him. The CEO didn't look at him. Jason will be transitioning laterally into a role focused on internal process development. No direct reports. It was polite language for exile. Hayward gave one short nod from the screen. "Then we're aligned. Alina, I'll see you on Thursday's call." His video blinked off. The silence left in his wake was heavier than the words themselves. Everyone in the room turned to Alina, not with applause, not with fanfare, but with a recognition that was quieter and far more permanent. Alina closed her notebook, stood, and left the room before anyone could try to draft a speech or spin this into a team victory. In the hallway, she finally let herself exhale, the weight sliding off her like an old coat. She thought back to that night in the middle school auditorium, Jason whispering about Parker's solo like it was holy scripture. She remembered the cold air biting her cheeks as she stepped outside to take the call that changed everything. Her voice, quiet but unshakable, carried only for herself. "I didn't leave Parker's solo because I didn't care. I left because $20 million was calling, and I answered." You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, or I'll flick the switch on your old cubicle memories.